Before we turn our attention to the new year of 2019, it's always a good idea to look back at the year that just passed. And over the past 12 months, we've traveled through great political shaking. Wall Street experienced the worst downturn since 2008. Social decay spread like wildfire, and America continued on its path. In the future, we may look back at 2018 as a major turning point. So let's take a look. It is amazing that 12 months has flown by already. It seems like the years just keep getting faster, and perhaps that's because we're all getting older. In any event, the following are from 2018. Many are almost too crazy to believe. So here we go. One study found that the average American spends 86 hours a month on a cell phone. A different study discovered that 37% of all Americans have eaten fast food within the last 24 hours. 90% of the beer that Americans drink is produced by just two gigantic corporations. McDonald's feeds approximately 70 million people a day globally. Pornhub gets more than 78 million visits a day. 60% of all Americans actually believe that they have seen a ghost. The middle class continues to decline, and at this point, half of all American workers make less than $30,533 a year. Since 2007, the total amount of student loan debt in America has nearly tripled. The suicide rate in the United States has risen by 33% since 1999. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death for Americans aged 15 to 24. Netflix recently made a deal to renew streaming of Friends for another year for $100 million. According to the United Nations Population Fund, 40% of all births in the U.S. now happen outside of marriage. In 1970, that figure was about 10%. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, almost one out of every four children in rural areas are currently living in poverty. Nearly 52% of all children live in a home that receives monthly help from the federal government. Over half a million people are homeless in the United States right now. Today, a million Americans are living in their RVs, and that number is rising with each passing year. 62% of all U.S. jobs do not pay enough to support a middle class lifestyle. In 1980, the average American's worker's debt was 1.96 times larger than his or her monthly salary. Today, that number has ballooned to 5. Over half the country now receives more in government transfer payments than they pay in taxes. According to one study, the rate of people 65 years and older filing for bankruptcy is 3 times what it was in 1991. More than 100 churches in the United States are dying every single week. In 1986, just 10% of all young adults were religiously unaffiliated, but now that number has jumped to 39%. One study found that one-third of American teenagers haven't read a single book in the past year. According to one recent study, Americans from the age of 18 to the age of 29 favor Democrats over Republicans by a 66% to 32% margin. In the city of Baltimore, about one out of every four babies is born as an opioid addict. According to the New York Times, about 110 million Americans have a sexually transmitted disease right now. It is being projected that the total amount of plastic in the oceans of the world will exceed the total weight of all fish by the year 2050. 90% of all seabirds in the world now have plastic in their stomachs. Back in 1960, that number was about 5%. During the last full week before Christmas, the Dow fell 1,655 points. That was the worst week for stocks since the financial crisis of 2008. The National Retail Federation was projecting that total Christmas spending would surpass $465 billion in 2018. Only 25 countries on the entire planet have a GDP that is greater than that number. In 2017, the Dow was either up or down by 1% or more just 8 times. In 2018, it happened 64 times. Volatility has returned to Wall Street in a major way. During 2018, the U.S. national debt increased by nearly $1.4 trillion. We are now almost $22 trillion in debt. Currently, we have a serious correction in the stock market. For 2019, I'm going to do my best to help you all make it through the market difficulties and make this a prosperous year. So thank you to all of my subscribers and viewers. Happy 2019. This is Chew Dog Charts.